Joe Marino is in studio right now. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Bill, Jeff, Andrew. How are you guys?
Did you watch the State of the Union last night?
I did. Yeah, I watched it pretty thoroughly.
What did you think of? Did you happen to see one Claudia Tenney in the crowd?
I did. I read her response too. It was funny because
no one cares. At this point, she's not a member of Congress. Do we care, or is she already starting the campaign to rerun for that seat? I don't know.
I really don't know. But yes, but I did see our congressman, our actual congressman there, and
he has a new Griffo.
Yeah, Catco?
Catco,
yeah. Well, look, if we
it rhymes even. It's the same syllables.
That's right. If we had 400 Catco and Brindisi's in Congress, I think we'd get a lot done. And I
think you're right. Yeah, I think they do. Can you tilt that towards him, Andrew,
Sure.
or you can just not observe it?
I was thinking about it, but then, sometimes I go in for the mic change and
feel free to come right at me.
You can never please me, Andrew. It's
I
terrible.
can't.
I can't do it. No matter how much I try.
I'm going battle.
Okay, Joe. How do you criticize the 2%? And by the way, in full disclosure, I've been hired by Marino's camp to do commercials. I produce TV and radio commercials. And therefore, I'll let Manasseh take a little more of the lead in this because I don't want anybody to think that you're receiving any special treatment. But I have to ask you, how do you criticize a 2% tax decrease? I'll start it off that way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I thought once it came out, I thought it was insulting to the taxpayers' intelligence. They raised taxes 8% last year, and they basically banked money to do just this. And I said it last year. Look, what I did was I gave my response to a budget as the finance chair, not as a candidate for mayor. I've been doing it for 7 years. I've been being the checks and balances and the fact checker of the administration, all City Hall, comptrollers at one point. So that is your day job. Yeah, my day job. I have
job.
a degree in accounting from Utica College. I've been an accountant for 12 years, 15, I think, at this point. This is my wheelhouse. This is what I do for a living. And when I knocked on doors originally to become a council person, I said I'd like to fix our finances. At the time, we were in an $8 million deficit. And I think that, some members on the council and, others made some really strong decisions. And we are doing that. We're going there. But it's these yo-yo budgets that really drive me nuts as a taxpayer and as a finance chair. So what I did was I gave my response. And my criticism isn't that there is a -2 tax decrease. My criticism is, where has that been throughout all of these surpluses? Where has that been with the fiscal responsibility towards the taxpayer throughout the last 7 years? I mean, that's my criticism.
And why does this mysteriously pop up during an election?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I brought up was, there's a disturbing trend of every 4 years the taxpayers get a break because the mayor seems to be running for office.
Yeah,
and they can't have tax breaks every 4 years. They need it continuously. Jeff, what I'm saying is there is no stability in our tax rate. It's the mayor presented 41% budgets in his 6 non-election years. In his 2 election years, there was a 0 and a -2. That's not an accident. That's political.
I saw on your social media here you put out the yo-yoing budget chart, which I actually thought was pretty effective, considering it does outline the up and down. You talked about the $8 million deficit, though, which is now gone, correct?
Correct.
Can you talk? I mean, so the city is gaining some ground financially.
Yeah. See, the thing is, though, we've done.
Isn't there? I have to ask though. Isn't there a bond in there somewhere?
There's
$2 million bond. So you're borrowing money, but you're giving. To me, that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the bonding really isn't as big of an issue as it is that we've overtaxed people. So to say that you have a financial plan and to say that you've recovered from this $8 million deficit because of fiscal conservatism, that is incorrect. That's inaccurate, and it's factually inaccurate. My point with the $8 million is we've taken it from taxpayers. So my son can balance a budget if he took an extra $8 million from the citizens. So that's not, cutting expenses. That's not gaining new revenue. That hole that we've gotten out of was because of the good people of the city constantly paying in. And every year it's perpetual. So when you raise taxes 10% one year, your taxes are still 10% that year, and then when you raise them another 3, it's 3 over the 10, and then it continues to go. So we didn't, look, the Common Council made some cuts in public safety my first year, and it was devastating. It was devastating to do. It was devastating to be a part of, and the first chance he got, the mayor vetoed those cuts. So he wasn't even willing to make hard decisions at the time when we needed it most. So this $8 million hole that we've climbed out of in our bond rating that's gone up, and everybody likes to champion the bond rating.
Sure.
A bond rating, there's a few factors that go into why your bond rating goes up. One of them is, do you have cash on hand? Well, of course we have cash on hand now. We've taken a boatload of money from people and then claim to have surpluses. So our fund balance is up because of taxes. Our deficit is down, right, because we have no more deficit. That's because of taxes. It's not like there's been some...
Sure, well, and then that's primarily where the city's going to get its revenue from is taxes from its residents. And you're right about, of course you know this, the bond rating that helps the city financially when it goes out to bond for other projects. Let me ask you one thing, though. Mm-hmm. Every budget that comes in, it's typical, the council reviews it, and then they usually make cuts. They want to cut this department so that an 8% tax increase is 5.5% or 4%, or a 20 comes down to a 12 or an 8, right?
Sure, exactly.
With a 2% tax reduction, will you make cuts to this budget? Because ultimately what could happen is theoretically your primary opponent here for mayor, who proposes a 2% tax decrease, if you continue to cut, it might be a 5% tax decrease, which probably doesn't help you in the long term. Will you make cuts to this budget?
Well, look, I don't know that yet because I haven't actually gotten my hands on it. So I know that there's fat in this budget because we've been paying for things perpetually over time, and they're not cut. So we have, a risk assessment firm with the mayor's cousin. That is in there perpetually every year. It's $50,000. I know that that's still in there. The Common Council hasn't seen one document to say why we're spending this $50,000. There's a couple of programs in there that I know are still there. I don't know what we'll do.
You're saying this is like a political side deal? He's giving a contract to his cousin?
I mean, this has been in public. I'm not breaking news here.
Right.
There has been a $50,000.
You're saying they haven't done anything, though?
I'm saying that the Common Council, I've begged for the Common Council to get a report. I even asked for it in crayon, just to have something in front of us that we would have a reason. When I go to people's doors, Jeff, I like to tell people what we're spending money on and why we're spending it. Right? So even if you raise taxes, if you have to raise taxes because, look, we need more DPW workers, we need more cops, we need firemen, we need to get roads done. When I went and presented that roads program to people, I told them, it's not going to be free. You're going to have your taxes raised. I don't mind, and most people will tell you, I don't mind paying my fair share in taxes as long as I know what I'm getting. But that side deal, I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know what this risk assessment firm is doing. And they're supposed to come to the council. It was supposed to be a 2-year program. We're going on year 5. So I know that there's fat in the budget. I don't know exactly where. But I'll tell you what I'll never do. I'm not going to try to outshine someone because of politics and try to lower taxes even more. If I'm confident in myself and my mayoralship, then I want to be in a sound position when I get there. I'm not trying, and these are not putting us in sound positions. This budget does nothing to pay down long-term debt. It does nothing to increase service. It does nothing, and it gives you a 2% reduction on 2 sales of properties that'll never happen again. So those are one-time revenue streams. So when you say the revenue comes from the taxpayer, I actually disagree to an extent because I think we've taken enough from them. I think now it's time to redistribute sales tax, to look at new revenue ways to gain revenue, perhaps advertising through free municipal Wi-Fi. I've got several ideas that will show why revenue can be gained without going to the taxpayer. But the short answer is no. I would never cut taxes just so I could look like I cut further. That's not fiscally responsible, and I wouldn't do it in a million years.
Well, and you see what I'm saying, though. I mean, if you guys do make cuts to this budget, let's say you're in favor of cutting something, you actually would get a bigger property tax decrease. But anyway, I know you get that point.
I want to ask, how do you avoid the roller coaster?
It's
something that you're criticizing. Does that mean that you would do a zero tax decrease this year? Maybe next year it's maybe 1%, or how do you move forward so that it isn't going way up and way down every year?
Right. So here's the thing. The way that the mayor presents his budgets are a complete happenstance every year. Oh, my God, this is what happened this year. Right? And every year you don't know. I mean, he said it. I'm just repeating what he said in his presentation. He said every budget year is its own year. It's its own microcosm. I don't agree with that. I think that you need the long-term plan to avoid these things. I think that there's ways to do that. I have a presentation that I'll be putting out there soon with multi-year budgeting. You can multi-year budget. Seattle does it. Seattle puts out a
Rome used to do it. They would set forecast 02, 02, 02.
And what that would do is not only would it provide stability to the department heads and the people in City Hall, it'll provide stability to the taxpayer. Yeah. And then you don't have to have these happenstances, 8 here, -2 there. Because, let me tell you, when I represent people and I talk to them in their houses, they're not getting 8% in their Social Security checks, and they're on fixed incomes, a lot of these people. So those kind of things are really difficult to deal with. But what you said, how do you cut and how do you keep it, I got to go back to that.
Yeah.
The fact is, if we make adjustments to the budget, if there are adjustments that the council would like to make, going further down is irresponsible. Going down to 2 is irresponsible because you're on the backs of what you have from sales. What we could do, though, is we could provide more service and readjust money. So let's say I take that $50,000, right, and I cut it out. I can get 10 seasonal employees for the DPW. We used to have 30. Now we have 10. So we can get seasonal employees for the DPW. So in the summertime, the parkway doesn't look like it hasn't been mowed in X amount of days, and the parks themselves haven't been weed whacked and those kind of things can be redistributed in a way that actually provides more service.
You mentioned something about sales tax, redistributing sales tax.
Sure.
What can the city do as far as that goes, and to generate more money?
Yeah, well, look, we're 24% of the population in the city of Utica, but we get about 13% of the money.
You're talking about with the county?
With the county.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought that's where you were going, but you don't control that.
Well, no, we could. And in fact, when I brought the presentation to Tony Pacini about 6 years ago, he was working really diligently to try to figure out a way to do shared services and redistribute sales tax. And in fact, you guys have had him on your program, and I know that, people gave him a hard time from the town of Floyd and the town of Ava as to, why would you do that now? Because any dollar Utica gets, it's obviously,
they get cut out of the picture, right?
Right, or at least it's, lessened. So when I brought it to him, he came up with a plan to redistribute sales tax, so where Utica was going to get an extra $1 million, $1 million a year, and it was going to be a 3-year program that sunsetted. Our mayor refused. Our mayor refused to do it. So that by the time this December rolls around, we will have foregone $3 million in new sales tax revenue. And then look, if it was the reason it would sunset, if it wasn't working out, then you go back to the drawing board. If the county really wasn't feeling the positive effects of it, or if the city wasn't feeling the positive effects of it, you go back and you renegotiate. It was going to be a 3-year program. But our guy said no. And I can't answer as to why. I hope he does, because I'll be asking him that throughout, my time, going forward.
What did the city have to give up in that situation?
So it's a really complex formula. But what it is everywhere in the county has a share of sales tax. It all goes into a pool.
Right.
City of Utica and City of Rome all get preempted, meaning if you spend money in Utica, you get to keep a portion of that money in Utica. It's like 1.5%. So for us, that equals about 13% per capita, right? So we would have to give up our preemption, so give up the 1.5, guaranteed, and then we would get a distribution for the whole county, just like all the towns and villages do, but it would be more shared more equitably. And what that means to me is, so when I'm a Utica resident, if I'm in New Hartford and I want to go to Walmart, I make my way to Utica's Walmart because I know that if I spend money at Utica's Walmart, it's going back to Utica's coffers. I'd like to go to New Hartford's Walmart and not feel like I'm not helping myself, right? And I'd like people in New Hartford to go to Utica's Walmart and know that it's going to help New Hartford. I think that, it provides camaraderie. It provides a regional way to do business, and we said no. And I think that, again, $3 million, and it's perpetual. As money goes up, you can, perpetually increase. We said no. And I think that that's a terrible way to do business. That's an extra 4 or 5% on your taxes. I
want to wrap it up with this. So Jeff had asked, would you be prepared to cut this even more and look at maybe a 3% tax decrease? But I want to reverse that just a little bit. Mm-hmm. If you guys dig into this and determine that the 2%, which is really what you're saying, that this up and down yo-yo is irresponsible. So are you suggesting then that there should not be a tax decrease? And if you to do a long-term budget, to really think out beyond just one fiscal year, if you determined that maybe it needed to be a 0%, or even maybe a slight tax increase, now you're running for mayor, you're in a kind of a tough position.
Yeah.
Would you want the optics of being the guy that came in and took away the 2%, at the very least to take away the 2%? But if you deem that to be irresponsible, don't you have an obligation to do what's right for the city residents?
Absolutely. See, the thing is this, though.
And could that mean taking away the 2%?
Two things. One, I can assure you, I am not concerned about optics. I'm concerned about the taxpayer. I will do everything that's right by them all the time. And again, I can only point back to that roads program because as a council person, it's very little you could do. I've told people directly, right to their face, it was going to cost money, and people appreciated the honesty because they're smart enough to soak it in. Right? So if you need to raise taxes, going out and being honest with people is the only way to do it. It's not the best way. So this particular budget, it's very difficult because of those bonding issues that you're talking about. What the city did was they're putting off bonding payments for future years, and I can't control that. So there's two ways.
You only have, 5 years to...
Yeah, so we took out short-term...
You can't keep kicking the can.
So the council had borrowed, and the comptroller had seen fit to, again, push payments down the road and kick cans down the road. They seen fit to ban for the money, which is bond anticipation notes. And what that does is, and I don't want to go too high above people's attention span, but what we're doing is we borrowed money and we're not paying principal. We're only paying interest. And we could do that for up to 5 years. And the way you do that is you say, well, maybe I don't need a bond, so I'm just going to borrow it, pay interest, and maybe we could pay it all back. We have no chance of paying it all back. So all they're doing is they're taking all this borrowing that they, frankly, a majority of it they don't need. They're taking all this borrowing and they're kicking the can down the road. So right now, I have no availability to put taxes back to zero, or because the bonding, the way that the mayor and the comptroller done it, there's no chance. So the only thing you could do is redistribute money in this particular budget. It's going to stay 2% under.
So what does that mean for the period that you've kicked it down to 3, 4, 5 years down?
That's my concern, and that's why I said in my initial speech, and look, to get into the politics of it a little bit, this is what really hurts. It's not going to hurt this year. It's not even going to hurt next year because you can keep kicking the can. But in 3 years, when the mayor's all the way gone, even if he wins another 15 terms, when he's gone, the taxpayers are going to have to pay the piper. And that's why I want to be in there. I want to protect them from that because this kind of political nonsense is really costing a lot of money.
Right.
And the kicking that can, it's irresponsible at best.
All right, fair enough. Good. Okay. Joe Marino, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
I know it seems like it's, tomorrow, it's just around the corner. June is so close compared to September, but it kind of is a little bit.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround. Look, I'm looking forward. Look, knocking on doors. What I concern myself with more is the volunteers and the people that go out on your behalf. Because you're sending women out and at night, or some people that maybe necessarily aren't really up to the cold weather task. So I'm not worried about me at all. I mean, I'll be fine.
Early spring coming. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's what the groundhog said. So no, we're good. No, everything's fine. We're
all right.
We're plugging along.
Okay, Joe. Thanks, Joe Marino, running for mayor of the city of Utica as a Democrat.